How's it going, Coach Doug?
Doing great. How are you, Jeremiah?
I'm doing good. All right, I got a couple questions for you. All right. So I know you do a lot of online coaching and like that. So what do you think the hardest parts of your job is?
The hardest part of my job is just the hardest part of being a human, and that is communication. And as a coach, you have to set a boundary and certain boundaries to your life. And for example, I don't want my clients texting my personal phone because that's for personal things, not for work. And so if I give them, like, I would say a container or a pathway of how we communicate, but then they continually don't use that pathway.
Yeah.
And then they complain, hey, I'm not getting results. How you not doing this? How you not doing that? It's like, whoa. I never said, I was upfront with you. This is how we communicate. This is how I'm going to get you the result. Not that these other things are bad, that's just not how I do it. And it's so I can be concise, clear, and do my job. And so you have to set boundaries for yourself. And early on, that's hard to do. And if you don't do that, any communication is going to become a problem.
Yeah.
But the communication problems will be 10 times worse. So that's the hardest thing, is learning what boundaries are going to matter to you and match your personality, your style. Because it's just like in basketball. Coach Phil Jackson was awesome, but he did things in a certain way. And other people have tried to run the triangle pinch post offense. And sure, they didn't have Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, but it's not worked out as well for them. You know, You got to find what works for you, and then make sure communication is top notch.
Then let's on to the next question. How do you deal with like difficulty with like other clients being unmotivated?
That's a good question. And honestly, that's a big struggle for any trainer. And often a trainer and even in school and teaching, you probably had some teachers you felt like were this way. They're like, well, I can take the horse to water, but I can't make it drink.
Yeah.
But like, they're not like meeting you where you are, you know? And so that's something that's important. Like, I've got to make sure, obviously, I'm doing my job first and foremost to give them an environment. But at the same time, again, there's a boundary thing. My theory is it's not my job to motivate you. But what I do to help with that is something I did personally in my brand. Was I included a resource where I take them through, it's essentially mindset work, but it helps them kind of develop this morning routine that I use that keeps me sharp. And if they're doing that morning routine, it's going to improve their motivation because their discipline's going to be tighter.
Yeah.
And not even their discipline, but like it affects your identity level. So if your identity's solid, that affects your discipline, and your discipline affects your motivation. And so it's getting to that root issue. Do they really have a motivation problem? No, it's a discipline problem. And if they have a discipline problem, how do you fix that? It's going to be some identity work.
Yeah. All right, so let's on to the next question. How do you create different workout plans for different people? Like, you got some, I know you do like Christian dads, but you also have people like my age that come in there and work out with you and do some online coaching?
Yes. So different people and different workouts. What you learn when you kind of do things like me is you tend to become known for something. And so when you come known for that thing, typically you will get a lot of the same people with the same results. The only problem is, sometimes you're a trainer, you truly get a variety of people. So you do have to be specialized and know what you're doing, and obviously be qualified. And after you're qualified, do your homework to be a continual learner. So you can always program things, like, I had a guy, for example, I mostly work with dads, but I had a 20-year-old do a bodybuilding show with me a couple years ago.
Yeah.
No kids, not as much of a time limit. A lot of the dads are like eating 1,900 calories because they slowed their metabolism through years of poor eating.
Yeah.
And this kid, I literally gave him 8,000 grams of carbohydrates the day before a show. 1,000 grams, mostly in the form of potato.
Yeah.
And he just got so pumped. It's like, who knows what would have happened if I'd have given a 40-year-old dad 1,000 grams of potatoes for a little carbohydrate pump, I wouldn't do that unless he's competing. But it just shows you that things really vary, but you got to do your homework. You got to keep learning. But over time in doing that, you're going to kind of connect with a certain audience, a certain type of person, and you'll find that it's easy to program for those people. Because when I work with a dad, I already kind of can tell when I'm talking to him in the beginning.
Yeah.
There's probably one of three buckets he's going to kind of fit into.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if that bucket is we're going to do 3 full-body days, I don't need to reinvent the wheel that much.
Yeah.
But I do go in and can customize things here and there to make sure the volume needs match, the exercise selection, and all that stuff. So
I do have another question. So I know some people say that PPL, push-pull legs, is the best, and full body is the best. Is it different on clients from what I've seen? I've seen it's different on different people, or is there one thing that's always the best for people?
I love that question because I could talk about this for days. But here's my theory, and I tell people, you will grow muscle or maintain muscle on a cut, whatever, best hitting your volume needs. And your volume needs assume that the right intensity for muscle. Assuming that is someone's goal. Some people truly don't care about muscle. They're just like, I want to be, stronger or improve conditioning. But assuming that that is the goal, muscle integrity, keeping muscle tissue, then it's about weekly volume, and a program becomes how do we organize that weekly volume? How do we spread it out to optimize their performance and recovery and, of course, muscle. So when we get to the session, we're putting the most and highest quality mechanical tension on the muscle possible. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, I do think the pull-push leg is a really good way to program it. But so is an upper-lower. If they can only make it to the gym 3 days a week, I would prefer a full body. Yeah. Or even maybe an upper, depending on what their goal is and how important legs are. And, if they're the average dad, an upper works great because they hate doing legs. Yeah. And practically standpoint, let's just hit legs once a week, get really good and warmed up for it so we reduce injury risk. Not just, okay, we did bench press, now let's go hit a squat, So push-pull legs too, I use it, but I use it just as because sometimes that makes sense to organize it. I've got a lot of guys that use a push-pull leg 4 days a week. So we'll go pull, push, legs, pull. Next week would be push, legs, pull, push. And then the third week, legs are hit twice. And so in the fourth week, we'll kind of deload it, do a contrast week, something different. Yeah. And then so every week had a week where something got hit twice. So, I like it, but it's all routine is organizing someone's volume needs for their goals.
What kind of surprised you on your first client, or the first couple of clients? What was the big thing that was oh, this is different? Because everyone has different pace. I like to work out at night, and then some people like to work out in the morning, or some people hate online coaching, and some people like in person. Did you really find any troubles with that?
Early on, I was only doing in person. It was 2015 when I started. And so what surprised me first of all was you put out your business card and someone gives you that call, or, oh, finally someone called me, or they text you, can you meet at 5:00 in the morning? I was oh, I never really thought I might be training someone at 5:00 in the morning, but that makes sense. That's when they go. It's before work. So that surprised me initially with I think it was my first or second client ever. It was all right, let's do it at 5 a.m. every day. So that changed things for me. Secondly, I think when I had my first online request, it was an in-person guy I learned was driving 45 minutes, and he said, can I just do somehow this virtually? And that was how online training started for me. And it was Excel sheets. And I think what surprised me is when online coaching became the thing it has. And I remember when I moved to Google Sheets, that was a big deal because the updates were live. He inputs his workout, boom, I see it instantly. That was crazy to me. But now with the apps I use and stuff, and then not to mention my app I use is getting the AI feature. Yeah. And we're taking pictures of food for calories. It's just every 2 or 3 years there's a shift in it. I feel like that does kind of surprise me, honestly.
Do you only have clients around here, or do you have clients like all around America or the world?
All around the world. I've had people everywhere from New Zealand to Sweden to India to Canada, of course, North America.
Is there a language barrier, or is you guys kind of like figure that out by like translate or anything like that?
The client I had in Sweden, we didn't do any like face to face.
Yeah.
So it was all through messaging. So there was no issues with language there.
All right.
The biggest challenge has been like if I work with someone over towards Australia and New Zealand, when I wake up and it's the morning, it's night for them. So like having check-ins with them was a challenge. It'd be really early for me or really late for him, but we made it work.
So my final question is, why did you choose this career? Was it like a thing in college? Like, oh man, I really want to do this. Was it growing up and seeing all these people compete when it comes to bodybuilding, everyone going up there looking jacked? What was your reason?
I grew up thinking I wanted to be a pro wrestler or an NBA player or an NFL player for the Cowboys or I didn't know much about bodybuilding yet actually, or a rock star.
Okay.
And the thing is like, I ended up in college being a teacher. But one of the reasons I picked teacher was because I knew it would keep doors open to be more than one dimensional.
Yeah.
I like the idea of teaching and like giving back, but I didn't like the idea of teaching and, I hate to say it this way, but like having a ceiling.
Yeah.
Cause like for a man that's like, you feel like you're in a cage, I think, in the classroom. If you don't have more, you can develop and grow. And so that was always the plan, is to have a side hustle.
Yeah.
And so this kind of became, this is what my side hustle is going to be. So in 2014, I started having people be like, dude, how are you changing? How are you getting stronger? Like you're making crazy progress and in the gym less than us. And so I got certified so I could make them plans. And then I was selling plans plus doing in-person training. And it was really, for me, just a way to make more income, especially when we were starting to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, my wife wanted more of a maternity leave than like the standards she could have. So it was a way to provide.
Yeah. And
then at some point, the side hustle outgrew teaching. And so I made the switch then to do it full time, which was, a leap of faith because, you can work for somebody in a bigger corporation, but like when you're doing it on your own, it's like you wear every single hat. And so like your mindset has to be on point. Mm-hmm. You're, if you miss one part of your day, it's going to like shift everything in the week because you're the one that does all those jobs. You don't have like other people like that can cover your, one misstep. Mm-hmm. So it's very unforgiving, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. If you have that entrepreneur kind of spirit and almost a little bit like, I had someone speak this into my life when I was a kid. They're like, what the funny thing is about you? I was like, what's that? They're like, you color outside the lines. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of always like in a lot of things. I'm like, that's true about me. And if you're that kind of person that's just like thinks outside the box, and it's not even thinking that you're better than someone, but like you just view things differently. And you're always like, well, why do you have to do it that way? And like, for me, it's hard to kind of take advice from someone sometimes because I see the nuance to the other perspective on it. And it's like, I understand we have to go a certain way, but like, it's rewarding to build something that's 100% yours if you go down that path. And if you don't go down that path, there's ways to do it and not have the negatives and the stresses and to that and the ebbs and flows because you're with someone else's. And, I would 10 out of 10 recommend it if you're passionate about it because you're going to be much more fulfilled doing something you're passionate about. And I don't think AI is killing it at all. It's helping it in a way. It's helping the good coaches. Yeah. It's going to weed out the ones that don't know what they're talking about. But if you learn to use AI, because it's not going anywhere, you might as well implement it now. So you don't look like the guy down the road that doesn't have internet at his house because he thinks he's the mark of the beast. Yeah. Learn to use it now. So it can make you do your job better, and you can give more personal touch to your clients versus using it to do the thing you should be doing.
Yeah.
Is my biggest advice I'd give to anybody.
All right. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for answering my questions and everything else.
Awesome, man. Hope it
All right.
helps.
Yep.